Well, I think we can go ahead and get started now. We've got all the AV stuff up and running, and that's a good sign. The rest of it should be all downhill from there. Easy, easy, easy. My name is John Doherty, and I'm President and CEO of the ABC chapter here in Western Michigan, and been your flight attendant or whatever for the number of classes you've taken, and hope you're comfortable and that we've had coffee and tea and milk and cookies and pizza. So now this is getting down to crunch time for some of you who are getting ready to take that examination. And this was an added event that we decided might be helpful for those of you who either were in the class in the fall and haven't taken the exam and want a refresher of some sort, maybe take some benefit from the fact that some things have been perhaps improved or revised in the sessions that we had in the winter. And just try to give you another opportunity to learn as much as you can about the examination, and mostly from your peers who have taken it and have been successful, or in the case of one gentleman, was not successful, but he's going to get it this next time. And I think he's going to share some of his thoughts about how his experience went. So let me make some announcements to you and go through some things in this regard. This night is for you, so don't be hesitant to ask questions. I've got some cards here for any of you who would like to write a question down, a comment, a statement, whatever, and just hold your hand up when I'm in the room, and I'll make sure that it's passed down, and we can hand that to Linda Fry, who will be the moderator. So I'm going to start these around to those of you who would like to take one. And even if you're not thinking of anything right now, just keep the card so that if you do have one while we're going through the presentations, that you'll have something to write on and can hold that up for me. John Stivers was scheduled to go into the hospital today for some surgery. As far as I know, he did. He has some problem with one of his legs, and so he was going to get that taken care of so he could get back and do more of these. And so our prayers and hopes for a good surgery today are sent out to John. He did send over to me some documents that he wanted me to pass out for those of you who were in the fall class. There were some items that he added to the study guide for the winter classes that he thought might be of some value to you. So those of you who were in the winter class, you should have gotten these either as handouts in the classes that you took, or were part of the study guide when it was published and made available to you. So there are the three piles at the end of the table that you can use. So come by sometime, either probably after the class is over with today, to pick one of those up. We are going to be videotaping the program today. We thought that it might be good as a resource for people down the road who didn't make it tonight or couldn't make it tonight, or that take the classes perhaps like we have in Kalamazoo coming up, and maybe don't have enough people or the opportunity to have a study review night, and it might be possible for them to get a copy of the DVD and watch it and see if there's some value. So that's why we have some of the lights here, and also why we have some suggestions for the panelists, the moderator, and anybody asking any questions. And that is this. For the moderator, Linda, and for the panelists, be sure that when you speak, that you speak with a microphone, because it will project out enough so that the videographer will be able to get the sound along with the vision. So that will be very good. And if you're going to ask a question from the audience when we have question and answer session, by all means try to give your question as loudly as you can, and those who care to answer it at the panel, try to make sure that you have a microphone before you answer any of those questions. So it's important that we capture as much as we can on the tape and have that for the final production. I wanted to mention to you a little advertisement. We had a joint workshop with the American Subcontractors Association in January that was very successful. It was on the consensus docs and also the new AIA contract documents. And we've decided to do another joint session with them. The next one will be on the 13th of May It will be at the Pinnacle Center. Be a little longer than the one that we had with the documents, but the topic will be building information modeling, and we're going to expose people who haven't had a great deal of exposure to BIM, and also try to have some people who have had some experience with 3D or 4D modeling, and then the progression on into BIM from there. So we think that this is absolutely a coming technology, and some people are already using it. And so I think it'll be a good informational session for you. And we're going to do as good a job as we can to make it a very worthwhile program, not only for owners, but also for middle management, for estimators, anybody, project managers, anybody who might come in contact with BIM or want to know more about it. The session will be open. It'll be sort of a general informational session, talking about the technology, talking about the trends, talking about the software, the hardware, training, these kind of things. So that will be on the 13th of May. And more information will be coming. There'll be a save the date coming out shortly, and then there'll be registration information. So I just wanted to give that advertisement to you. Then the last thing I have, for those of you who are parked in the parking area below here, there's generally a need for an exit code, and that's the code on the wall over there. Today's exit code is 1124. You should write that down so that you can get out, because the gate generally is closed, although sometimes they'll try to open it when they know that we're going to be leaving. But in the event that didn't happen, as you don't want to hold up anybody behind you, make sure that you write that down. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce the presenters and the panelists. We have Sam Probst, who was one of the instructors in the winter class, who will be talking about resources. And originally we had him scheduled to be the leadoff hitter, but he had a change in plans, and he'll be coming a little bit later. So we revised the program, the agenda a little bit, and we're going to go to the panelists first and get that squared away. And then when sort of you've exhausted the questions and things for the panelists, then Sam should be here by then, and he can pick up on the resources from there. And then we'll just sort of have any other questions and answers that need to be covered before we leave. And before we go, there'll be some opportunity that maybe we'll have anybody who wants to try to form a study group go to a corner or go over in front of the whiteboard over there, and you can make a match however you might be able to do it. Not sure if we'll have people who are interested in doing that, but just thought we'd give you an opportunity. So with that, I'd like to introduce the panel members, and they can come forward and take their seats. Our moderator today is Linda Fry, and Linda's the executive director of the West Michigan chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council, somebody who's familiar to you, and she's also a LEED AP of recent times. So we're glad to have her in this position, and she will become the moderator for the panel as we get into this. Also on the panel with her will be Ben Wickstrom from Earhart Construction. Paul Bergsma was supposed to be here, but he was called out to a meeting in Chicago, so he had to take that. Bob Fosberg from Quality Air, Heating and Cooling. Roberto. Mike Nowakowski from Elzinga Volkers. Al Grunewald from Burgess Concrete. So I think that's everybody that we have on the panel right now. There was one question from somebody that came in by email regarding having somebody from interior decorating, interior design on the panel, but we weren't able to fill that slot in time for today. But if there's anybody here that might have some insight into that area, if a question comes up, by all means, just volunteer and answer. Then lastly, but certainly not least, is Earl Eddy. Earl is an old friend of mine from ABC days way far away ago when he was in California. Earl has the greatest number of new members that he's brought into ABC of anybody in our chapter, and certainly he was in that particular position when he was in California. A great promoter of ABC, and now he's applying that talent to USGBC. He's the current president of the USGBC Western Michigan chapter, and I want to invite him to say a few words.
Thank you, John. This is quite a deal to see all you people that are involved in getting your passing this test and whatnot. And John and I had lunch here back in January with John Stivers. I brought these two guys together. They made me buy the lunch. Now they're making the money. I'm not sure what the deal is here, but they both owe me. But I'll collect later if I can remember. But to get the classes, these preparatory classes prepared, or get them going, get started here a year or so ago. So this is great to see this, and then this opportunity here. As I've been joked in the company, because I took the test 4 years ago, I think it was, and I took the version according to Mike on the dais there that was prepared by the Girl Scouts of America, and that was the test that I passed. In fact, I actually checked my certification today that I received from USGBC, and in the bottom lower left-hand corner it says certified also by Girl Scouts of America. So he was right. I didn't know that was on there. I missed that. But this is great, and it's a wonderful opportunity. But as representing the West Michigan chapter for USGBC, I would like to encourage you, once you pass your test, and even prior to that, start checking us out. Get involved. Okay, I've been a strong supporter of ABC for years, and I'm now a strong supporter of USGBC. It's the biggest movement that I've seen in the 37 years I've been in this industry. Both, as you know, if you read the recent article, both Linda and I were on the cover, and yes, my right hand was in an appropriate place, and so anybody that's been teasing me about it, and she can attest, so from that standpoint. But we've had fun with it from that standpoint. But the real thing that I want to encourage is you know, as you pass your tests, get involved in the association, get involved in what's going on. It's a member-driven association from that standpoint. It's committee-based, just as many volunteer efforts are, but we are making a difference. It is the biggest, like I said, one of the biggest movements that I've seen in our industry in many, many, many years. And so from that standpoint, we have a website. If you'll jot that down, it's www.chapters.org. Excuse me, chapters.usgbc.org/West Michigan, all one word. And that'll bring you right to the chapter, and you can see what's going on. Also, provide us with your email address, or you can get mine pretty easily, just about anywhere. And we'll get you on a newsletter, get the newsletter coming out to you so you can see that, and you can track what's going on with the association. Of course, if you join the chapter, we encourage local involvement and we encourage national involvement. There are two separate memberships. They're not, they're unique in that way that you can join locally and nationally. And there are two different reasons to do that. One is what's going on, to find out what's going on locally, of course, but of course, USGBC National is growing leaps and bounds. I attended the Greenbuild Conference in Chicago last November, 25,000 people there. We're going to Boston this year. I don't think Boston's big enough for the amount of people that'll be there. So it's really kind of interesting to see something grow like it has and to get involved in it from all levels, not only national but local. We are a unique area. West Michigan is a leader in the country. There's 73 chapters, and we're one of the leaders in the area for the number of firsts that we have in regards to LEED. So check us out, get involved, and good luck on your tests. And it's been a pleasure. And if you got any questions, Linda can answer them for you, or you can contact me and be more than glad to, especially about getting involved in the chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. And I wanted to mention, I forgot to, that Earl is with Elsingen Volkers. You want to use the... Whatever you prefer. Then we can pass this one.
Oh, yep, it's on. I can't touch it, right? Hi.
Let's do a test.
Can you hear me?
How's that back
Can you
there
hear me?
video?
Can you hear me? Great. I'd like to start it with a quote It's a pretty powerful quote from Paul Hawkins, a guy who wrote a book called The Ecology of Commerce. He's a businessman, one of the owners of Smith & Hawkins. They owned an organization that did gardening, great, really high-quality gardening supplies that grew and grew as a catalog company. And he's now very involved across the world with organizations that are involved with environmentalism and social justice, and is collecting grassroots, the names of grassroots efforts, more than 100,000 of them at this point, that he features on Wiser Earth, a site that he monitors. And he says this in his book called Blessed Unrest. No one has done the metrics, I say yet, but in its short life, USGBC may have had a greater impact than any other single organization in the world on materials saved, toxins eliminated, greenhouse gases avoided, and human health enhanced. And I think that that's a pretty big statement, but I think that when you think about the impact that what we do, what you do every day and what you've done over your lifetime, the impact of buildings on our environment, that can be a true statement. And it's just a matter of measuring it eventually to know that it is a true statement. And that's why I'd like to also say that the LEED was developed to set a standard that helped us all avoid greenwash. So we can't say that one thing makes a building green. We have a standard, as you all know now that you've gone through the class, which is an extensive set of metrics based on an extensive set of already established guidelines. And if you haven't already been corrected, you will be now in a position as a LEED AP to correct others when they tell you that they are building to LEED standards but not getting LEED certified. Please immediately correct them, because LEED is registered. USGBC is registered. LEED Green Building Rating System is a trademark. And the only thing that happens when we start to say that about what we're doing is that we're greenwashing the effort that we've put so much time into avoiding greenwash with. There's many other things one can call a building that they're building unless they know that they're going to be LEED registered and LEED certified. You can call it high performance, call it what you want, but it's not LEED. LEED's a standard that's third-party verified. So unless you're third-party verified, you're not building to LEED. So that's my job as a LEED AP, and it'll be your job as a LEED AP to qualify the difference when people speak about leadership in energy and environmental design. So that's my job. It's all of our jobs now. I'm going to get going with you guys. Haven't really, just barely met you, but is the gentleman here who didn't pass? Okay, very good. Just so that we're glad you're here. Well, no, the day that I, no, please, you're going to be really an important person, I think, on this panel. The day that I took my test was on December 31st, put my feet to the fire, promised myself a new pair of boots, etc., and wanted to celebrate the new year properly. The 4 people who took the test before me didn't pass it. And the gentleman at the building who also had gone through the test, it's at Sylvan Learning Center, Prometrics is at Sylvan Learning Center, Shane Malone, he also didn't pass it the first time. So this is not an uncommon position to be in. We just saved $250 because we didn't have to do it again. So I'm going to start with a list of questions here and talk about strategy and the kind of strategy that you set for yourself as you looked ahead to taking this test. And I'm going to go ahead and be the starter on these to sort of set an example, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this, but my first strategy was to look at the priority where, energy and atmosphere has more points than et cetera. I did first things first. I studied energy and atmosphere first because it had the most points. Then I did indoor environmental quality. It had the nest. Then sites, then materials, then water. I knew that if I started with the one I liked the most, that I might not get around to all the others. So that's one of my strategies. So why don't you go ahead now and...
Thanks, Linda. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Wickstrom with Earhart Construction. That's the last time I'll say that tonight. Linda, my strategy was really to focus on the details. I made it my job to know the gray boxes in the book. In that gray box, every credit has that summary page, with the intent, the specific requirements, and a couple of strategies for that credit. And I knew if I knew that box for that credit and I could retain that knowledge, that I would be in a pretty good spot for the exam. And I'd like to add that if you're in this room tonight, you've probably already taken 2 or 3 key steps to passing. So take a deep breath. If you're here tonight and you put the time in, you'll get it. You'll get it. So that was my approach.
Very good. Pass it on. And what kind of strategy did you take?
Well, quite frankly, I didn't have a strategy at first.
There you go.
I received this thick book here, and I looked at it, and I thought, the only strategy is try to figure out what's in here that I have to know.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, trying to retain the entire book, to me, was almost impossible, but I know I had to retain an awful lot. I went through the course that ABC put on, and at that time, going through the course, I tried to pick up what I needed to study for, and I just kind of got lost. I got lost in the whole mess of it, and I put it off, unfortunately for me, until the time came when I had to buckle down, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then that strategy started to come into place, trying to find out what I had to study for, talking to people who took the test before, getting some outside information together so that I knew when I went through the book, I could highlight the right items. I don't know that you can overstudy this, but I hate to say that, but you probably can.
I probably
We
did.
have seen that it's quite frankly, with some of the people who took it in our office, probably overwent their bounds in certain areas that they didn't have to. So that was my strategy to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Novakoski. Honestly, it was a humbling experience because I did take it the first time and did not pass it. So my first strategy was minimal studying, or to try and get through as easy as possible, to hopefully skate on the ABC program to kind of get your arms around it, and then when you went to take the test that you would recognize the right answers and so forth. So I had gone through and read the book and had sat through the classes, but I don't think that I truly internalized it like I should have. And I went and took the test feeling pretty confident, having gone through college and master's degrees and all that, and had no idea how much more difficult it was going to be for a multiple choice type of a test. And I only missed it by a couple of points, so I had my very first F on a test in my life and was quite disappointed, and I've heard that story shared from a lot of companies and a lot of people. So I'm first here to say I'm humbled by the process, and what I learned was I really needed to grasp a hold of what the whole concept was of sustainable building, and that I had to internalize it. I had to not just read it and memorize some formulas or some percentages or some ASTM standards, but to really get it down into my gut and really understand what it's all about and really start to believe in the whole thing. Wanting to lead the effort in a company and really get people to embrace it and to understand it really takes a different type of studying, that you're not just reading it to get by or just to get into that test, pass, and then put it aside, that you've understood it enough that it becomes something that changes your thinking in your personal life and in your business life. So proud to say that my second time around I passed it. I was quite relieved, but I also really understood the whole intent of the LEED certification process, and am much more of an advocate of that today, because I did put the time in to understand each particular credit and all the things that Ben and Bob had talked about. So.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Albert Grunewald. I'm in the same shoot as all of you guys are. I have to take the test over again. I honestly took the class, and it was good. And when every time after one of our classes were done, I'd go home or even at the office and I'd rework it. I'd spend an average of about 10 hours a week during the class time. And then afterwards, when I was ready to take the test, I felt really comfortable. I knew all the material. I had the basics memorized. And I felt like, yeah, I could do it. And when I hit the test, I thought I did well. What I really didn't realize, I think, is what you were mentioning earlier, was when it came to the submittal or design on how do you actually implement LEEDs, that is what got me in trouble. That is actually what happened was I knew the credit, I knew what the requirements were, but the actual submittal or design or CIRs, CIRs was really did me in. So kind of what I was saying is I thought I knew it, but I really need to, on the next time I'm taking the test, there's going to be a lot more memorization involved. Memorization, not so much, you guys all know the basics, you've been through the class, and the class is excellent on that. It's more, now let's get down to the brass tacks of actually, if a question is asked, how can you implement it? How will that work better for you as far as design? Is it a submittal? What do you have to do a CIR on this one? I think if we understand that, for my sake, I could do better, because a lot of questions I had the right answer, but I was in the wrong credit. You know, it could be credit 2.1, I was right, but we were asking a question in 2.3, something for instance. So that's kind of where I run into trouble.
Okay. I guess I'll just have you hang on to that microphone as we go ahead. I'd like to make a comment about that strategy and the synergies. I was encouraged, but it helped that I did some coursework at Aquinas. I was encouraged to look at the synergies of and that's kind of what I thought was really cool, is that the application. I read through that. My favorite part was the approach and implementation section in the book, because as you all know, or am I the only one who kind of like started to nod out a couple times when I was studying? But as you do go through the book, the approach and implementation is what excited me, and a lot of that is where you get the synergies, where they start to talk about how across the board these credits have relationships. I'm just going to give you the one example that I thought was pretty cool, and the interior design person isn't here, but changing the color of the room can change the HVAC because of the reflectivity of the walls and the way that influences the heat that's in the room. A lot of the synergies do evolve around energy and how everything impacts energy, the energy use. So integrating those synergies, I think, is part of the tricky part. Like you said, you knew a lot of what was in that book, but when it comes to how does it integrate, and this is a standard that was, after all, developed based on integrated design. Our next question is about how much time did you spend you mentioned that.
Yeah, I'll kind of continue on that. I figured out offhand I studied about 100 hours for this test. And at first, my boss was very fortunate. Burgess Concrete allowed me to do a lot of studying at the office. So I spent a week while the tests were going on actually working in the office 2-3 hours a day, where I could close my office door, nobody would bug me, so I could review what I'd learned that day. So that was a benefit that I had that a lot of other ones don't. But even after that fact, when the test was all done, I figured I studied about a 2-week period, and during that time I put the additional at least 40 hours in those 2 weeks. Then I took 2 days off before the exam to study. So I thought I knew the material very well. And I did. I mean, I could memorize all the credits, and I had all that. My plan was I actually rewrote the book in my own paraphrasing. That's what I did in the office on the computer. So I retyped out each one so I knew what it was, but again, I typed it. I didn't memorize it for internal knowledge. So when I took the test, it was no problem. I knew the answers, but all of a sudden they started asking how to interpret a credit. That's where I ran into trouble. So that's kind of where I got stuck.
I think the first time around, I sat through the class. The first, I think it was 5 weeks worth of class. In the first several weeks, I was able to keep up with the reading, and then I kind of dropped off. And the tail end of the class, we had our exam, and I took that, and I think the coaching suggested that if you got a 65% or something in that range, that you probably were pretty close to in that passing range, 70% or something like that. So I think I had a false sense of security, and so I knew that I had to finish reading the book, but I felt really good about what I had learned in the class time. But again, having not completely internalized it, I went and completed my reading. I probably, so you had the class time of, let's say, 12 hours, maybe another 12 or 15, 20 hours maybe reading the book, and then I think I did a little 3-hour quick study before I went in to take the test, and I felt very confident, and I got through the test and thought I nailed it, and like I said, just came up short.
Close.
And really, I was short one area that I was convinced that I had failed to do, and that was the research on the USGBC website to understand the CIRs and some of the applications, because I had gotten a really low ranking on that. So I've convinced myself that I erred in that course, but I'm glad that I went through the extended version of my study program. Second time around, I was really kind of lost as to what to do differently, only study harder. And harder meant I reread the whole book, and then one of our associates had gone through and done the same thing, had taken the test, just missed it, went back and had to study again, and he had developed a credit by credit worksheet that you have to fill out manually. So I went through and did that, and each credit I read it, and I had to fill out, what the intent was and the implementation and some of those types of things, some of the standards, percentages, all the little things within each credit that I thought from recollection from the first test that I needed to know better. So having done that, in fact, I brought my book. I have probably 80 pages of handwritten notes, page or two for each credit. And I think that's what kind of helped me to internalize it. Was as I was writing it out, I'm getting these aha moments of, the synergies between these two credits, and this is what they really mean, and here's the overall intent. One of the things that I found really fascinating, I spent probably 2 or 3 hours reading some of the CIRs on the website. I thought it was going to be really boring and dozing off kind of a thing, but I was very engaged in it, because after I did all my studying and started to understand the intent of the credits, and I saw how creative people were challenging the credits and coming up with new innovative ideas, I started thinking about how big of a deal this is for the industry, for construction and for sustainable, protecting Mother Earth, I guess. And so that really started to lock it all in for me, where I was really internalizing it. And I think once I did that, it came off a lot better. But that second time around, I pretty much studied from scratch again. I read the whole book again, wrote out all the credits. I think I took about a 4-hour period right before the exam, and I did a little cheat sheet kind of a thing by credit, kind of the top 5 things, and I studied that again, went in and took it, and I did better. I mean, I only missed it by a few points the first time, but I didn't pass it with flying colors the second time. So, all things said and done, I probably had somewhere in the 50 to 60 hours total between class time, reading, studying, and so forth. So it's something not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, my experience is a little bit similar. I took the class, and like I said, the manual, the guide is very, very thick, and I did understand a lot of it. The class did help that way. It's a great overview, but I took a practice exam, and I didn't do very well on it. I just was lost with how to put the information together, and so totally it was probably 2 months, but in reality, I signed up for the class, and I had 2.5 weeks. I just forced myself. I signed up, and I really dove in this thing every night. I spent an hour and a half with it. Leading up to the class, the weekend before, I went into lockdown. I mean, Saturday, other than dinner at night with the wife, and Sunday at church, other than that entire weekend was spent with this book, going through it over and over and over again. And the reason I did that, I found a study guide that really helped me, and it all clicked when I got this thing. It kind of helped me put things together, and I'll explain it as we get to the next question regarding that.
Resources,
but it helped me to put things together. Like I said, as far as what's in here, it is great information, and you do get interested, very interested. But some of our guys, we had 3 of us taking the class at the same time, and to let you experience how you can study the wrong things or too much information, I would have put my money on these guys to pass this class and myself to fail it, but it went the other way around. But these guys, literally, if you asked them, they could have told you, if you said, what is credit 4.1 in the office banter going around, they could tell you it's recycled content 10%. They knew that. You don't have to know that. The questions after you take these practice exams, they will give you that information. They're going to tell you what the credit and the number is throughout the test. There's 69 credits here in the prereqs, and these guys literally had that memorized. And I think they kind of went a little bit too far in some of the memorization. Like these guys were saying, you really have to know this stuff. You really have to know how to take it and from one credit to the next credit and go back to another and where it belongs as far as all the reference standards in here. So, my study period, the real study period, 3 weeks in the end.
I had a 3-part approach to my study time. First, I took the class. Now, I will admit I didn't keep up with the readings and the homework in the class. But what it did for me is it opened my eyes and gave me all that, the big picture background. And it was very important and very beneficial. The second thing I did is I read the book. I'm not going to claim that I read it cover to cover either, but I focused on what I thought to be the important parts, which were the summary, the reference standards, and the paragraphs on the approach and implementation. Don't worry about the calculations. Don't worry about all the stuff after that. But the gray box, the reference standards, and the approach and implementation, because that'll tell you how the things tie together. And then the third part of my approach was similar to these guys. I took the typed up slides from the class, and I took the reference guide over here, and I just picked and kind of rewrote the hot topics on each topic and created my own study guide, which I focused on in the final phase, which was took the test on a Monday, put in 8 hours on Saturday and 6 hours on Sunday, making my own notes, going through them, and that's when it clicked for me on how things started tying together from the different categories of the credits. So for me, it was the class plus probably 14, 16 hours. Just locked myself in the basement and crammed.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm going to make sure that I'm being heard properly. What you might compare this to a college course where there's professors who give you multiple choice tests, and that's it. And you have to study less for those multiple choice tests, unlike this one, which is a multiple choice test in its own category, I think. But a multiple choice test that's a relatively easy approach to the information you've learned in the class. Then there's those teachers who have the kind of multiple choice tests where you have not 4 choices, but you've got like 25 choices that you get to pick from all of those for your questions. And then there's that same instructor who often does essay tests. Not just one big essay test, but the kind of essay test where there's 3 points for 20 essay tests. Have you had those instructors? You hate them, but you love them because you really, really learn what you're doing in that class. And that's the kind of studying you have to do for this course. It's the kind of studying you have to do for a professor that really wants you to learn everything that's in the book. So our next question is, what were some of the, why did you schedule the exam when you did? We'll do that one. We got to watch our time a little bit,
right.
But.
Want to do the next 2 at once?
Yeah, I think you're right. Some of the most helpful resources. Oh, no, go ahead. Make it a quick. Why did you study when you did? And then we'll go back to the next.
I took the test in December because it's just a goal to get accredited by the end of the year.
Me too. That's why I did
it. And then my top 2 resources, I just had 2, the class and the reference guide. That's it. That's all I used.
Okay.
Doing research?
Well, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
as far as the class, I scheduled it for on a Monday so I could cram during the weekend, quite frankly. That's why I did it on a Monday. And I scheduled the test, even though I wasn't real confident at the time I scheduled it, so that I had to take it. So I had to study. That's the reason I scheduled it when I did. Mm-hmm. As far as resources for me, the reference guide, obviously, you have to have this. But somebody gave me this Colorado chapter study guide, this practice exam study guide, and you get that at usgbccolorado.com. And this study guide really, really laid it out for me. You were talking about how to lead the LEED team through the process and stuff. This has got it all in there. This has it too. And this isn't the only thing. You can't get this and pass a test. This helps you to go here. And it's got a fantastic practice exam in it. I mean, that practice exam brought me through this thing because I could flip it out and take maybe 2 pages of that and kind of judge where I was at. And I'd say, well, I'm not ready to open the rest of the practice exam yet. But this thing here really, really did help me an awful lot. Then the other resources, we have an in-house LEED AP, and we got to talk to him an awful lot. So those are the resources for me.
Very good.
Well, I used my vacation as the incentive because I had this big L on my forehead. In fact, my kids kept saying, "Oh, Dad's a failure," but I took it in November originally, and I think I used Thanksgiving as a goal just to get it out of the way. And again, I didn't take it as seriously. I figured out the hard way that the only way from point A to point B was to walk through that painful trail of broken recyclable glass, and that there was no other route. There's no easy way to pass this. You can't, as Bob said, just download this document, read it, and you're golden. You really got to know it, period. I've taken it twice, and I can't come back and remember the questions well enough to share with my fellow teammates at Elsing & Volkers that, here's the ones I think I got wrong, and you guys study them up and you'll know it, because the questions are worded in such a way that it's very difficult to even remember how they were all set up. But I ended up setting it up for the Thursday before I went on vacation on a Friday, and as Bob said, I scheduled the test about a week in advance of when I was going to take it, and then I just took some time out. I think I spent a couple of 4 or 8 hour sessions just kind of cramming, as Ben said, thinking that if I could really lock myself away, and I actually went to a public library and sat there, no distractions from the kids, no TVs, no football games on the TV upstairs or anything like that. And I thought for me that worked out very well, a lot of focus. And then it was fresh in my mind. I was pre-committed. You probably need to sign up with Prometrics at least a few days or a week in advance anyway to get your time slot. And that seemed to work out pretty well. And my resources, again, as these guys said, it's the book, the guide, but I think for me was rewriting it and making your own notes helped a lot to internalize it. When you're writing that down, you're kind of like, why am I writing this, or what is this all about? And you're thinking about how it all connects, and I think that helped me retain the information a lot better. And today, when I walked out of that test, proudly passing, I also really understand the program enough to be a spokesperson to be a good LEED AP and to be a spokesperson for the USGBC. So,
I have one comment. We, as you will have noticed, we have not discussed content of the test per se, and we don't want to do that because we want to keep the integrity of the test for all of us. And the good thing about it is it's so hard. I mean, even if we wanted to disclose the content of the test, it's really, really difficult to do it. These are questions that you just can't. You got the right answer, but how did they get you there? So, but we are not here to disclose content of the test. We're here to share our experiences with you about how we made it across that ocean so that we did pass the test.
Yeah, I had taken the class in the fall one, and then I waited 6 weeks, and then I took the test also right around November, around Thanksgiving, figuring too I wanted to get it done before Thanksgiving to enjoy my Thanksgiving, which turned out a mistake because I didn't enjoy my Thanksgiving. My daughter, who's an elementary teacher, definitely told me I bombed, and she was pretty shocked. She thought I was joking. She said, "Dad, you didn't fail?" I said, "Yeah, I failed." She said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Yeah, I got 169 and a 170s passing." So as far as I was concerned, I should have got a 150 because it doesn't matter. I still failed. But my initially studying was actually the book and then just rereading the book over and over again and taking notes. I'll mention later on that I have a different philosophy now from talking to other people and also other people that have passed and failed the test. I just talked to somebody last night and his technique was good. He studied for 6 weeks also, and he took the fall class with me, and he also did the same routine and he passed with a 174. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough test, and he felt the same way too. You have to know your stuff. But give yourself enough time. That's the biggest thing I can say. I gave myself, I scheduled the test 6 weeks before, and I figured, that's enough time, but I procrastinated till 2 weeks before the test. Then I started studying. After about 3 hours into it, I realized, man, I should have given myself more than 2 weeks because it's quickly how quick you forget it and how it all connects together. So if you do it and schedule, be serious and diligent on staying right with it till the day of the test.
Sure.
Sam is going to talk about a website at the University of Florida. I don't know anything about it myself, but he's going to talk about that a little later as a resource, and it sounds like it might be something similar to what you had. in Colorado or whatever. So be sure to put that on your list when he.
Yeah, Sam's going to do it. He's got some visuals to show you about some of the resources that he's going to suggest. I did the 6-week thing. 6 weeks must have been something that we all have in our minds. That's enough time. That's plenty of time. But I did start to spend some time every week. I did it on December 31st, as I mentioned, so I had Thanksgiving and Christmas vacation time where I knew I wasn't going to have a workload that was going to take me away from it. So I did make good use of those long weekends, even though there was family stuff happening and such. So I think I ended up spending about 10 hours a week, so on average, about 60 hours of study time. I had also taken the technical review course earlier in the year, actually I took it in October. So I did the technical review course, which is an 8-hour presentation, and that was another resource for me. Also, I wanted to say one thing that helped me prior to taking the test is I went through all the definitions. Nobody's mentioned definitions yet, so I'm going to mention definitions. But I caught myself on a number of things that hadn't sunk in when I went to the definitions. And reading those definitions also pushed me back to some credits that I realized were a little unclear because I hadn't gone through all the definitions. Now, I think that Sam should be here soon, so we're going to go ahead and start to wind down. I have a comment to make. Though the details don't get enmeshed in the details, I really had a lot of anxiety about that. How many cubic feet of what should I know? There are some details, but they're the bigger ones. They're the bigger details. But you want to know your baselines and the percents above them. You want to have a good sense of what baselines and the percents over them are. You want to know your prerequisites, the standards that those prerequisites are based on. You want to know the synergies. We've talked about that. The general requirements, things that are really required. You're going to want to have a sense of what those are across the board. And the reference standards are made reference to. There are many reference standards, and ASHRAE, SMECNA, et cetera. There are references made to those. But our final question will be a little more about the experience of the exam in the exam room at Prometrics and specifically. Can you? Okay.
I was expecting everybody to be sitting in a room like this here and then hand the test out and be ready to go. At the testing center, it's a little different. They actually might be 10 different tests going on at the same time, and your name's called up. They give you a set of headphones, a couple of pieces of paper and a pencil, and you go in a cubicle, and you're on your own, which in a way, if you're expecting, that's great because you don't have to worry about anybody else. It's you take the test when you're ready, when you sign up. But I was actually expecting, a different scenario on that. And then you have to get used to wearing headphones. I mean, I'm used to doing construction. It's no big deal. But if you're not used to it, it's something you got to psych yourself out for, to have something over your ears for 2 hours. The test itself, I felt there was enough time for the test. The 2 hours seemed to be sufficient for me. Like I said, I felt comfortable with the test, and the situation was good. One thing I would suggest to do that a friend of mine, what I was talking to last night, did was he actually had asked them ahead of time if he could actually write down a bunch of, let's call it a cheat sheet or whatever, when he got in there, because they give you the paper and the pencil, and he actually wrote down all the credits in a row with little indications that might help him remember in his own sake, so that when he took the test, he would not become confused by a different credit for something. And he used the 10 minutes of time before the test and 10 minutes of the test because he had practiced that at home enough that he could write down all the credits in 20 minutes with little abbreviations to help him remember whether it was 5% or 10% or whether it was 3.5% of the 10 points. And for him, it worked out well. For myself, I don't know, I think I might choke on it, but I think I'm going to give it a shot to kind of have something like that. And he said he used that when he became confused to go back to get him on track. But, the testing situation was good as far as that went. Again, all I can emphasize is I knew the abbreviations, I knew the definitions, I had them all memorized, even all the what the three letters would stand for. But if you get too much material, like you guys are saying, that gets confusing too, and then you just get bottled up. And you really just need to know what LEED is about, more so than all the memorization.
I would concur with a lot of what Al said, but the test was 80 questions, and when I first took it, I think as you're going through it, if you're unsure of a question on the computer form, you can mark marked or whatever. You can mark the question to come back and look at. And I think I finished the first exam maybe in an hour and 20 minutes. And I went back and looked at my marked questions, which were, to me, the ones I wasn't certain of. And I think I had 15 of them marked that I thought, not quite sure. So I went back and re-reviewed those. Probably took me about 20 minutes to kind of go back through those and rethink them. And I hit the submit button, and literally 5 seconds later, they tell you your results. The second time around, I had the same, obviously same 80 questions. Well, actually, I believe they're different questions, that they don't necessarily all come from the same pool, or that they come from a pool of questions. So you don't necessarily get the same 80 questions to each person. But second time around, I got through it, did the same thing, marked all the ones I was a little bit nervous about. I got to the end, and I had 39 of them marked. So I was that much nervous because of having gone through it the first time, so I wanted to be ultra conservative. So then I went through, and I think I finished that in about an hour and a half, and I said, I'm taking the whole 2 hours. I'm going to go through it. The last suggestion that I thought worked out well for me is, as I was reading, you might have 5 answers to choose from, and it says pick the best 3 or the 3 that are most applicable. And I was kind of putting A, B, C, D, E on the sheet of paper they give you, and if I knew E was no way, that's not going to be it, I'd cross it off, and I'd try to use some of that process of elimination to kind of get down to maybe the 3 out of the 5 that looked right, and I still had to only pick the 2. Problem is, if you pick 1 right or 1 wrong, you got half that question wrong still, so you got a 50% on that question, so it's pretty tough. But those would be my suggestions on taking the exam.
I had a similar experience while taking the exam. The time went very fast for me. I literally had 30 seconds left when I clicked off, so I used all of my time. I saved some questions, went back through them. I would say taking the tests, maybe a third of the tests were what you could say for me were no-brainers for me, because I got it. I looked at it, click, click, click. I've got that. There's no problem. 2/3 of them were literally, pick 3. Well, I know 2. I don't know the other one because they're so close. That's why you really have to immerse yourself into this book, because they're so close. You're going to be going, I don't know if I got it right or wrong. So 2/3 of them were like that, and that surprised me. I thought I knew it a little better as I went into it. In my field, the energy side, the HVAC, just to let you know, I wrote down a couple of things as far as the references. We have a lot of ASHRAE references. You really have to know where to apply those things. There's like 4 or 5 different reference, ASHRAE 90.1, 62.1, 55. There's a bunch of those references in there, and they will put the wrong reference with the wrong question. I mean, you have to know in this book which ones they apply to, because during the test they will mix up different references for different credits. And if you don't know, it gets real tricky too, because sometimes it's there and they list ASHRAE 90.1. They didn't list the correct one because they had 2 or 3 other correct answers. So you look at that and you go, well, that makes sense. I know it's an ASHRAE, but it's not. So you've really got to know these reference standards.
That some of the questions were weighted more heavily than others, and could you tell that perhaps?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, there were the no-brainer ones. Then, the biggest surprise for me with the exam was I passed, quite frankly. I mean, I must have hit a couple weighted questions, bang, and got through it. But, there were definitely some questions that were very difficult that you looked at, and maybe the second or third answer that you had no clue. So, like you said, you look for the wrong answers and keep moving on.
I agree with Bob on the standards. That was, looking back, that's the thing that tripped me up a little bit. I didn't know the reference standards as well as I should have. All the ashtrays and the other stuff, you do have to know which ones go with which. And I felt that was the only part of the test that they were kind of tricky. Everything else, they're not trying to trip you up, but those reference standards, they did kind of move them around a little bit. Two other unexpected things. It is a noisy classroom area, especially if you have a loud typer next to you. I think there were essay tests going on there. So just be prepared for that. The other thing is I was a little bit surprised there were more ID questions, innovation and design, than I had studied for. I didn't really put any time in the ID part. And there were more than I was expecting in the ID section. I just kind of glanced over that, and that tripped me up a little bit. And then my third item is our instructors during the course kept saying, remember, the test is framed from the perspective of the PA, the project administrator. Turns out they knew what they were talking about. That's right. So that there's a lot of questions. What would you do if? That type of scenario situation. Then you have to narrow them down. And that is great advice. If you don't know it right off the bat, flag it, come back to it. On every question, I think you can knock off half of the possibilities and then just focus on what you know to be a couple of those three remaining. So that's good advice.
You do get paper that you can use to scribble on. Excuse me. As you mentioned, you can write whatever you want on there. And I only remember one calculation that I had to do on paper that it really took some time, and I had to do it on paper. So there's not a lot of calculations either. But
you have to kind of know the calculations, correct? You don't have to do them, but you have to know the calculation because they'll ask you questions about it. How do you get to this point? That's what I had quite a few actually on the calculation side. As far as like the bicycle racks and the FTEs and things like that, maybe my test was a little different, but I had a lot of them that I didn't have to calculate anything there, but I had to know how they got to this point.
Was there a point where you said, well, I should guess because it might get that extra point, or I may get that, as opposed to not guessing and maybe not getting half the point?
I don't know that we would have known. Yeah.
No, I didn't feel that.
Maybe they say there's 3 correct answers in that group of 5, and you found 2 of them, but you left 1 out. Would it be? It sounded to me like you didn't get penalized if you guessed wrong on that.
It's called a scaled weighting. So you don't get a point for each correct answer. It's called a scaled weighting test. They don't exactly reveal how they scale the weighting, but it's called scaled weighting. So the questions that were more difficult, your correct answers on a difficult question might have more of a weight than a correct answer on a less difficult question. So
at some point, and maybe you mentioned it publicly, that you were scored on the basis of the number of right answers as opposed to the number of wrong.
Correct.
So it might be that if you have 3 right answers in a question and you figured out 2 of the 3 and you had X number of them that were other options, that maybe if you guessed at that one, you might pick up the
You definitely want to answer every question. If you don't answer the full amount to the full amount of required answers to a question, you automatically have one wrong. So you're always benefiting by taking a guess. You don't want to not answer a question. Oh, that could be. You have to pick 3. So they force you to answer the questions, and it's to your benefit even if you're wrong. Right. And now for questions.
I just took the test, and I did actually I just took the test, and I did have a question where it was pick 3, and I accidentally picked 2, and it did let me advance. Yep. So one of those things that I think I would be more cautious about is to go back through and make sure you did get all your answers checked. So.
Are there any other questions? any questions? We could take a 5-minute break and have some brownies until Sam gets here, if there aren't any questions. Dave.
All of the questions, or like 4 or 5 of the questions at a time, or are you seeing one question at a time? One question and the multiple choice answers. You answer that or put a hold on it, and then you can move on.
Yeah, he just asked if you're seeing more than one question at a time on the screen, and you're only seeing one question on the screen at a time. And you can mark it if you mark it if you can't answer it, if you want to go back to it. The system is I found the computer system quite friendly, how to discover how to mark it, unmark, and then there's that last moment. Did you say you passed? Oh. 4 short? Good point. Good point. You need 170 points to pass.
Did it flag the question that you didn't answer all of them at the time when you took it? You missed it?
Okay, because I can't.
If I flagged it, it might have.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it worked for me. If it stopped me, or if all of a sudden it came up and told me I didn't answer them all. Something happened where I didn't put all the checks in, and it literally let me know somehow, which was great for me. I mean, that way you don't make a mistake and miss one.
I have one last comment before we go ahead and take a quick break. And I have a daughter who took her driver's test, and she passed it with flying colors. And she was so proud, and the driving instructor who gave her the test said, "You did really good. But I want you to know, you're just now really going to start to learn how to handle your life on the road." And that's kind of how this is. We go through the test, but then it's a matter of really putting it into play and learning how to start to do integrated design with your team, or convincing a team that integrated design is going to make a difference. So this really is a leaping off point for a lot of us. And I'm really, really glad that you're all here taking that, getting this information, because I think this really is the only way that people can grasp what they need to about what this is about, as painful as it is. So enjoy your break now, and John and Sam will be back soon.
How many of you were not able to get onto LEED Online at some point during the time when you were working on this project? Everybody got on? You got onto the website and were able to navigate around all right? And everybody got into all of the different tools? I'm just going to go through some of the different resources that were made available as just kind of an overview. This is the home page, just reconstructed just a couple of weeks ago, so if it looks new, this is why. They just they do this just to keep you on your toes every 6 months or so. It's completely new, and you have to learn the whole system all over again. And it's vastly improved. Every time they work on it, it's greatly improved. So click on the LEED, whoops, a little sensitive here, resources page. It's going to chug for a bit here. Wasn't what I wanted. Oh, here, this is what I wanted to show you, the reference documents. This has just all kinds of goodies in it. This is the ID credit catalog that I think we talked about in one of the last seminars, that has all of the ID credits, and there are, I think, 18 pages long of every ID credit that's ever been approved in the past, and it's a great resource to go to. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there that I would just implement as a part of any project. So if you're, especially in the EA credits, I'd make them a regular part of any LEED project. It's going to take a while to open up, it looks like. So we may not want to dwell too much on this. That's what's trying to open up. That's why it's chugging along so hard here. You can see some of the other documents on here. Who can be the commissioning authority? Here's a comparison of LEED NC, Core and Shell, and Title 24, a PDF document, California Title 24 and Energy Code there. You're not going to need any of that. Here, this is one of the AC EEE listings for the low-emitting vehicles. That's one of the California standards that lists all the vehicles. I opened that up and it lists them all. You can sort them by whatever, highway mileage or city mileage or maker or anything. So that's a really useful one. Maserati's right at the bottom of the list or top of the list, depending on how you sort it. So you decide. So that was kind of interesting. Those won't be of much use to you. Okay. The ever important errata sheets, yeah. And I found if you've got the third edition, you probably don't need the errata sheet. It should have everything up to date because I think the third edition was just published. What's the date on it? Oh, okay. And mine's 2005, so it's really October 2005. Yeah, so you might find a few things on there, but I found a whole bunch of stuff when I opened up one of the new ones that was there, and there's stuff that I have no idea. I never even knew was in LEED. I'm kidding. April Fool, right? Okay, so this is a really rich source of information for you. Any questions on that resource? Okay. This is open to the public. Yep. Anybody, I haven't signed in. Anybody can get to any of this. Oh, you're signed in on this? I think you can get into this anyway. Yes. Yeah, and I'll probably have to sign out and then sign back in to get into LEED Online. No, I won't. I won't have to, but I'll show you in a sec. Okay. We'll go back to the home page because they now have a hot link to LEED Online here on the home page, which they haven't had in the past, which is kind of nice. Every backspace is in a different place on every computer. Oops, I didn't get that. I saw that just as I clicked the button. It might be because it's logged in under Linda that it's having difficulty, so we'll try it one more time. we're in. Okay. And I'll take you to one of the projects that I have that's in the final review. This is the entrance screen, and you've all seen this if you've gone into the LEED Online. This lists all the projects that you have operational. And this is the home screen for your project. And up here will list the status of your project based on the number of credits that you have checked off as attempting. So if you have checked off that you are attempting all of the credits, it will show you as platinum rated. It has nothing to do with whether or not you have submitted anything or you intend to submit it or anything else. It's simply whether or not you have indicated whether you're going to attempt them. So when you first open up this LEED Online, the first thing you need to do is go to the project summary here. And you get that little yellow caret that comes down and that blue bar that comes across. And you need to fill out this page. And you can go back and edit it later on, but you will not be able to submit the document unless all of these fields are filled in. So it's important as early as possible to get this figured out and get it right. And by the way, if the information on this page is at odds with what you have submitted on any of the LEED Online templates, then that raises a red flag, and you'll get audited for one of those credits.
Sam, is there something on the exam that relates to this, or having to go here to put one together helps you to answer something on the exam? So
this is all project administration, and this is just the kind of the nuts and bolts of how this whole thing works. Then this is fairly basic stuff. You enter the project address, who the primary contract is, the owner or the architect, the project type, and then you can load your project documents here. This tab is identical to this tab, so when you push that, those two tabs will get you to exactly the same place, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The next place that you're going to go to is team administration. And this is where the team administrator, and I think John might have indicated to you that the person who signs on and registers the project should be the team administrator. Just get that done, crack off the bat, and make sure that that's the person that's going to be responsible for checking to make sure that all of the credits when you go online are going to be the responsibility of the person that registers the project. It's just the simplest thing to do. What you're going to do then is you're going to invite the team members to join the project. And you simply enter their email address here, and you push a button, that button, and it sends them an email automatically from the USGBC to that individual, and it sends them the product or the project ID. And it says, you've been invited to join this team. And they will come to the website. They will register on the website if they're not already a member. They'll become not a member, but they'll register with the USGBC as you all did, and then they will become a team member. And these people have become members of the team. And here is where we assign them their role. And this guy was assigned the role of project team manager. This guy was the HVAC engineer, the client, and so on. And that's how you manage each of those roles. You can add new roles down here if you don't like the preordained roles that have already been established by the USGBC. You can make up anything you want and identify that here and develop the entire list that you want. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. You can have as many people on the list as you want. I saw today an architectural firm that assigned a single credit to every single person in their firm. So that's how they just divided it all up and conquered their programming that way. The next thing, the area that I'll take you to see is where you load up your documents. So these are generic documents that maybe a number of different credits refer to. So photo documents of the project, architectural plans, elevations, building sections, project narratives. This was kind of a general overview. So that all can get loaded up here. And these are generic. They pertain to maybe a broad cross-section of credits, and there's no real home for them. The CIRs. This is where you get access to the credit interpretation requests or responses. And if you want to submit a new CIR, you just click on that button here and you get a little form to fill that out in. And I'm going to take you to one. And there are two ways you can do it. You can search for it, and I always search for it back to the beginning of time, which was 2001 when they first implemented the program. Or what's more appropriate, and in fact, I've never even used that system. I've clicked on the credit category that I was interested in pursuing. It gives you a drop-down menu, and we can go to stormwater quality management, and this is the CIR. And this is the form that it takes in. Somebody submits a scenario. They keep it very generic. The intent is to identify some kind of a program that is unique, that might be something that would occur on someone else's site somewhere in the country, but it's not addressed by LEED, and then the USGBC rules on that, yay or nay, and they set a precedent. And you can use that precedent in your decision making, and so this is just an incredibly valuable tool, and this is very dense reading. It can be very dense reading, so you go at your own risk.
Sam, is there a citation number for each rule or anything like that, where you make a reference to rule number such and such? If you tend to use this somehow.
You know, the ruling is by date, is the way they've been identifying them. Yeah, this would be SS Stormwater Management Quantity Control Ruling dated 8/10/2007 is how you would refer to it. Okay, and finally the help page. And if you're lost, this tells you how to do any one of these functions. So this will tell you what a project team access ID is. And there's quite a lot of detail there. If you're really not certain about what the process is, here's the types of files that you can upload for drawings and images. For miscellaneous, it drives me crazy, I'm sorry. Miscellaneous, that's misspelled on just about every document in here. Miscellaneous files are PDFs and so on. Doesn't spell check work anymore?
That doesn't have anything to do with Michigan, does it? The first part.
Yeah, this was written in Michigan. That must be it. No, it wasn't.
I heard one of you guys that started this whole group.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Okay.
So that's the organizational side that's the administrative side of how you manage the website. Then we'll go back to the credit scorecard and status. Maybe. John, is there some water or something up there? Could you? Or that's fine, something to drink. Is it working? There we go. Okay. Now, we go back here, and this is where we identify who is responsible for that particular credit. And in this case, the project team administrator took on the responsibility for managing this particular credit. And here the owner took responsibility for that, for this credit. Let's go to this one. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now you're fortunate because you get to see one that's actually it's in review right now, and so we'll sidestep that for just a minute. But when you open this up, this has some fairly basic information. On the left-hand side of the screen, when I did this project, they really wanted me to do almost the entire project turnkey for them and do all of the documentation for them. I did the vast majority of it, but the team administrator title will list all of the credits that they're responsible for on this side of the page here. So if you're the owner, it would only list the projects that the owner is responsible for. So it's like a quick link. So if I want a quick link over to bicycle storage, I can just click on that link there and go over and work on that credit instead of having to go back to the main page. When I want to download the template, I go to this page and I would click on that, and you've all had a chance to download the templates and see that and work on. You haven't. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's not do that. We'll find another one in a little bit that might be a little more user-friendly. And I'll walk you through that template a little bit later on. This is where you upload the site documentation, and to do that, you just browse your computer. So you go to your electronic file, and you pick it up, and you click on it, and you click on Open, and I'm going to cancel out of that, but pretend I clicked Open, and that file name will get in there, and then you click Upload, and it will automatically upload it to the website, and it will reside on the USGBC's computer until they're ready to review it. And when they review it, they get to open it up and look at it. There was an issue on this particular one with the location of the parking signage, and so we were called on it. And let's see if they'll let us open it here. So we responded to their request for clarification on that. And in fact, in this case, because the owner got a little ahead of themselves on a little ambitious and did not quite meet the intent of the credit, they just went and moved the signs and did meet the intent of the credit, which is fine by LEED. That's what they wanted. And so all they did was respond to it. And we've actually submitted some photographs to go along with this as proof that they've done the work, and that was what they had asked to do there. So I'm going to come back. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull a template down in this section here, so I'm going to have to come back and get one for you a little later on. Okay, now this button here is a crucial piece, and I'm going to take you back to the home page, but I want you to remember this. Normally it will say, when you're working on the credit, mark as complete. And I save that for a last case, the last piece. I know John said never push the back button because it'll kick you out of the system, right? Sometimes it does. When you're working on a credit, this little checkbox here is, as long as you have opened this and downloaded the template, as long as you have looked at this credit and have done any work on it at all, it will appear as a gray check mark. If you have uploaded the template, it will appear, I think, as a no. If you've uploaded any information there, it will be marked as a check mark. I reserve marking that as complete until I am 100% satisfied that all of the documentation is 100% complete. That's just my final review. And then I'll mark that off and check that with a green check mark, that marked complete. And that tells me I don't have to go back and look at that credit again. It's done, and I don't have to think about it. So that's the checklist. And these were the reviews. This was the review. They sent me back a letter that said we want clarification. They identified what clarification they wanted on these items. Most of it was, there were 16 credits, I think, on this one that they wanted clarification. Most of them required a paragraph identifying what it was. I think one credit we realized we're not going to get the light pollution reduction, and there's a technical issue with that, and so we know that we're not going to get that. But for the rest of it, it's pretty much minor stuff. Any questions about how that's working, how that LEED Online is working? Pretty clear there? Okay. Yeah, you can't do this until you pay your $450. Yeah, they're pretty good about that. Show me the money. Let's see. Okay, we'll sign out of this project. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem too. When you register a building, you can elect not to be registered publicly. And that's a real problem for me when I'm trying to look up statistics for the region, because it doesn't give me an accurate picture of what Michigan is doing nationally, or West Michigan. And so we don't really know how many LEED projects there are in the area. So it's the owner's objective. If they're uncomfortable about showing financial information, which is sometimes you show on your project, how much you've got, how much you have invested in the construction operations, or how much FF&E you've got. I mean, you saw that maybe on the application page. There are people that don't want to part with that information, and I know a lot of the retailers, the big national retailers, have been not very interested in publicizing the fact that they've registered hundreds of stores nationally. So that's interesting. It doesn't. Well, anyway, you guys can figure that out. The implications of that. Okay, I've got a couple more things I want to show you. Here's the ID catalog. Looks like it finally opened up. Just a long list. Here's sustainable sites. It's in new construction for reduced site disturbance. This was the intent. These were the requirements and the submittals that were required for that. So it gives you a sense of what all of these 32 pages of these ID credits that were. Yes. No, this is part of the public site, which I found really interesting. But let's see, how do we get? Let's just go. Oh, these are available to anybody. I'm not on. Linda's still signing in, but these are available. You can open. I'm pretty sure anybody can open these. Did you look at these, Linda?
No, I just.
They were.
If you weren't going to show up, I was trying to figure out what I was going to
Okay.
talk about. So I was going to show you.
Okay. This is one of the credit templates, and it says sample form all over it, so you can't take them and use them. But this is a typical template. This is building reuse. You type in your name here and the company name here, and then you start populating the data fields here. I'll try to go a little slower there so you can follow what I'm doing. It's got a bunch of radio boxes that you can check or uncheck. Again, just populating the data. And I'll let you get into the ins and outs of what the requirements of that credit are. I apologize. This is kind of sensitive here. There we go. And most of these calculators will do the calculations automatically for you. The percentages will be calculated for you. They're formulas that are embedded in here. In many cases, in fact, I would say 90% of the time, you are required to input a narrative. In this case, it's optional. But it will tell you if it's required or if it's optional. In this particular case, if you're going to do an alternative compliance method, this is where you would enter your alternative compliance method. So, and if that's what you're planning to do, all of the information that you're going to do for your alternative compliance track, you would enter here and then just check it here that that's what you're intending, and it's going to. Let's see if it'll enter the information here. We're going to game it a little bit here. No, for some reason it's not. I don't have enough data up in the forms here. You can play around with it a little bit to find out why, if you're not getting a value showing up in the form, identifying whether or not you get the credit. It's because more often than not, you have not filled out all of the form properly. There's a value missing somewhere, and it won't register the credit until you have all of the data filled out properly in the form. So that's why I just threw in some garbage numbers in there, or letters, to kind of cheat the form to find out if I had the right value in there. And it's not documenting anything, so I'm missing enough information up there that it won't let me do that. When you are done, and it does show you how many points are documented, then you sign your name, first and last name, or you type it in, and you date it. It gives you a drop-down menu. It doesn't say Sam or Eco. You write your email address and then your password. There will be two boxes here. Let's see. Before you sign your password, I save an electronic copy. I don't use any printed copies. If you want to do a printed copy, that's fine. I just save them all electronically. It's just a PDF, and I just store it in an electronic file. But when I'm ready to upload it to LEED, sign your password, and then there's a button right down here that said Load to LEED Online. And you push that button, and it will automatically upload it to LEED Online, and you're done. It's there. It resides on LEED Online. You can also work on it on LEED Online. you can download it and keep it on your computer and work on it as long as you want, and keep it there and then upload it to LEED Online. Or you can leave it on LEED Online, and 2 or 3 people can be working on it on LEED Online, but you have to share the password, and let it reside on LEED Online, and that's fine too. But it has to get re-uploaded every time. And that's why you have to share that username and password if you're going to let it reside on LEED Online. And then just upload the documentation. So that's a typical template. Yes, let's do that. Thanks, John.
Hey, Sam?
Yeah.
Can you delete off, once you upload that, can you delete it then if it's your password? You know, like what we were just going through, like when you do one of those.
Delete your password?
Well, no, can you delete what you sent to it if you want to change it at all? I mean, is the person who wrote up the original request or whatever, with your password, is it allowed to be deleted? Or once it's on the GBC, it's there?
Yeah, no, you can change it, but it's like an act of God. You have to do that through the USGBC staff, and it takes a phone call, but and you just have to be persistent. No, it's not that bad. You just have to get to the right person, and sometimes that can take some doing. Okay, I need to get to learning to lead. Let's try this. Let's try. Whoops. Okay, this is the resource that John was referring to. It's the University of Florida website. It's called Learning to Lead, and it just has some great information on it. It's actually a set of courses that they have, but they tell you an awful lot on how to study for the course. They have a lot of resources that you can refer to. They're all downloadable here. And some specific stuff that they've been developing for the Florida marketplace. I don't even want to open that one. There's a forum that you can get into. Shoot. Okay, study tips. This is all pretty much stuff that we've gone through the class. This is in the LEED AP candidate book, and then the quizzes. All of these have 16 question quizzes, and they're pretty well done. You can open those up, take a look at them, answer them. It's a great resource there. Take a look at that. I had thought John was talking. I think also some of them sites have what do they call it? The cards for flashcards. Have any of you tried those? You think there? Did it? So you tried some? Oh, you saw them on the screen? Yeah. My daughter took the exam last fall, and she made her own study cards. John has looked around at a number of them. I have not. And he didn't have much good to say about very many of the cards that are out there. The only one that I know of that I have a lot of respect for is Cascadia Chapter. I know they have some cards out there. I have not looked at them, but I know that everything that they do is really excellent work. And so, just on reputation, I would have you look at them, but I cannot vouch for them 100%. So that's the best recommendation I can give. I do have some of the final exam sample forms for those of you that did not get them. I do have some extra ones here, so you're welcome to come up and get a copy if you would like. Oh, you've got some too? Okay. If anybody has any questions, we'll try Stump the Chump. This is the NPR crowd.